Hey, Tufo, turn it up.
What's going on, Freedom Fit family? It's Shad here with another video. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your post notifications. And in today's message, we're going to talk about how this whole world is essentially a family at war. And this goes back essentially to the beginning of time. But we'll start at the time frame of Noah, right? As many of you may know, the flood came and destroyed all humanity, all animals on the earth at one point in time. Even the giants who were of the Nephilim seed, right? When the angels, the fallen angels, actually mated with humans and they made giants, right? Now, once those giants were destroyed, since they were half spirit, half man, the spirit, pretty much like an invisible body, because it is a person but it's spiritual, they still dwell on the earth. But nevertheless, physically, Noah and his family were preserved through the flood, right? 8 of them were saved through the flood. And after that occurred, Noah and his family was to replenish the earth. And in the process of doing that, you know, there's a time when Noah gets drunk and his son Ham finds him naked, right? And the reason why that was an issue, the reason why that was essentially sin, is because when you go to Leviticus chapter 18, you see that you're not supposed to uncover your father's nakedness, your mother's nakedness, anyone that is of a close kin to you, essentially, that will be seen as some form of sexual immorality, to the point that Japheth and Shem, the other 2 brothers of Ham, when they realized their father was naked, they came in the room backwards and covered Noah, right? But because Ham saw his father naked, Noah actually put a curse on Ham and all of his bloodline, right? For that's a continuous declaration by the power of the tongue. By the power of Noah's tongue, he spoke a curse over the bloodline of Ham. And now Canaan, who is a son of Ham, and all the Canaanites essentially are a cursed nation of people, right? Now, out of the bloodline of Shem comes Abraham, who God makes his eternal promise with, who is also the bloodline in which Christ eventually comes out of, right? And throughout Abraham's life, you know, he has Ishmael, which is his firstborn son, and then he has Isaac, the child of the promise. And Isaac has Jacob and Esau. Now, in that situation, we have one child that's righteous. We have the other child who's wicked. Jacob, whose name is later changed to Israel, is righteous, but Esau, also known as Edom, is wicked. And Esau is the father of the Edomites, who are historically a wicked nation, a nation that served other gods, a nation that lived very closely to the Canaanites, but also lived very closely to the Moabites and the Ammonites, right? And the Moabites, Ammonites, and the Philistines all live very close to one another, right? And the Canaanites, along with those other nations, as well as Egypt, they all serve similar deities throughout history. And even the Ishmaelites, who are the children of Ishmael, are very close to the Edomites. If you do your research, you know, you would see that the Edomites are the modern day Arab people. But regardless, over time, all of these nations, the Egyptians, the Philistines, the Moabites, the Ammonites, as well as the Canaanites, become an enemy to Israel, to the children of the promise, to the seed of Abraham, right? They even live in close proximity. The Moabites, the Ammonites, the Philistines and the Egyptians, right? And the Canaanites are sprinkled throughout there as well. And there is a perpetual war between Jacob and Esau. And every time Esau or the Edomites attempt to invade Israel or persecute them in some way, a lot of the time you will see the children of Moab and Ammon, as well as some of the nations I also mentioned on top of that. Now, Ammon and Moab, they are the sons of Lot. Lot is Abraham's nephew, right? So the way that Ammon and Moab are even created is through the occurrence of what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. So in the land of Sodom and Gomorrah, there was a lot of homosexuality. There was a lot of sexual immorality, even incestation. There was a lot of different things going on. Other sexual perversions as well, such as threesomes, fivesomes, whoredoms, just all types of whoredoms, adults messing with children. And I had mentioned on another video that every sexual immorality is done to revere evil deities. That is where it comes from, right? So when we were in the world, just laying down with whoever, doing all types of sexual perversions, right? That was a way to show your reverence and worship to a principality, to an idol, to a deity that you didn't know of. But as I also mentioned in the previous video, you wouldn't know that because we were taught to go by man's law. We were taught to be governed by those principles as the standard of right and wrong, right? In error, of course, but that's just what it was. And then, God willing, we wake up to the truth one day and then we start to reform our mind, as Romans 12:2 talks about. But regardless, once Lot comes out of Sodom and Gomorrah, his two daughters come with him. So there's three people out of all the people who lived in Sodom and Gomorrah that were able to be delivered out of that place. But when that happens, his daughters are like, well, it's only us on the earth. They think they're the last ones that exist, at least of Lot's bloodline. So what they do is they get him drunk and they lay with him. Each daughter lays with him one night, and then the next night, the other daughter lays with him. So on two different nights, his two daughters lay with him and they get pregnant. Of course, they make him drunk to do that. So check that out. The first, or one of the daughters, her son is Moab, and the other daughter, her son is Ammon. At least they're the father of the Moabites and the Ammonites. And when we look at what happens after that, we see that since this tribe of people, this nation of people was created through sin, they ended up having a sinful bloodline. Look at Ham and his bloodline. Because he did a sin that would be in the family of sexual immorality, his bloodline is cursed. And the truth of the matter is, there are some people who are born to be wicked. I know that's hard to swallow, and you may have been taught that, everyone's good deep down, and, people will get it one day and all these different things. And even the concept of free will, to a degree, can be challenged. I would say that those who are not born to be wicked can exercise that free will, but I would also argue that there's some who that's just how it was supposed to be, that they will be wicked. Even Abraham, before he passed, spoke to his children and grandchildren and told them not to marry daughters of the Canaanites because their whole seed will be rooted out of the earth. That is the prophecy to happen, right? So we got to ask ourselves then, what is the purpose of evil? Why does God use evil? And there's three reasons we can at least look at in the Bible, not to mention three. And we know that God uses that number. Well, at least I'll say that number relates to completion. You got God being the father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, three, right? You have the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, three. The chicken crowed or the rooster crowed three times, and then Peter denied Christ, right? Or I'm sorry, he denied him before it crowed three times. Christ says, pick up your cross. No, I'm sorry, deny yourself, pick up your cross, follow me. But I digress. Three of the reasons why evil is used is, one is to prove Israel or test Israel, to test them to see if they will be obedient to the Most High God or if they will follow the other nations, right? The other reason is for God's glory. We saw that even with Egypt. When Israel was in bondage to Egypt, God hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would not let the Israelites go. And the last reason is for judgment. We saw God do that on several occasions, and he typically will use the nation's God that you chose to serve, or I should say that Israel chose to serve at points in times. He will use the people of that nation to then rule over Israel. We even saw that with Solomon when he allowed his wives to lead his heart astray, right? God started to have him be invaded by three, not to mention three again, three different people. It was Hadad the Edomite, his servant Jeroboam, and there was one more. It may have been an Egyptian. No, I'm sorry, it was the king of Syria. The king of Syria. So God used evil or those who are of a wicked nation to judge Israel, right? So there's a purpose for evil. But why am I saying this? Why am I saying this? The thing is that if you have righteous seed in you, and even furthermore, if you know that God has been speaking to you in life, that you can start to reform your ways, then it's time to do so. Just because God knows the end from the beginning doesn't mean that he doesn't give you a chance to choose what you're going to do. Choose what you're going to do if you're able to, right? Because at the end, no man will be with excuse. Some will be of a reprobate mind and will never come out of it, no matter how many signs were given to them. Because maybe they're just so committed to the opposite kingdom. But if you are of that righteous seed, I want to encourage you to start taking life a little more seriously. Start waking up and start hearkening to the voice of God. And it's important to know that the beauty in all that I said is that salvation is also available for the Gentiles, as we saw in the New Testament. And that is the greatness, the glory, and the beauty of Yeshua, also known as Jesus Christ, right? Because of what he did, that salvation is available for the nations that are not Israel, right? Does that mean everyone's going to take it, right? Does that mean some people won't be so blind to the fact that they're just going to continue to be the blind leading the blind and fall into a ditch? That doesn't mean that those who aren't going to make it aren't going to make it. And the thing is that whether I said what I said about some being born to be wicked or not, the thing is that it was going to happen anyway. You know, the unfortunate thing is that there's some people in hell right now. But at the end of the day, if you know that God has been speaking to you and you know it's time to reevaluate your life and see that glory of Christ, see the glory of God working, and give that an honest chance and an honest try, then I strongly encourage you to do so. And even when we talk about hell, we kind of have a perception or a perspective that it's a place that's so far off. Like, you know, I'll just figure out when I get there. Maybe it's real, you know, maybe it's not, or, you know, maybe it's just some different type of spiritual world I go to. And yes, there's a spiritual component to it, you know, not a spiritual component that's pleasurable, but it's spiritual in the torture that is that it's comprised of. But the truth is that it's right here on earth. If you read the Bible, you'll see that hell is in the nether parts of the earth, the deeper parts of the earth. Even Christ, once he died and was crucified, he went to hell for 3 days and then led captivity captive. He went up and took all the ability of the evil kingdom, took the keys of the evil kingdom, and he holds the authority over it. He even said when he had come back to his disciples, all authority has been given to me on heaven and earth, right? So it's also important to pay attention to the ability that we have through Yeshua, because through one man, being Adam, the spirit of death came into the world, but through another man, grace abounds even more. That's through Christ, right? We wouldn't even know how to do evil if there was not the initial transgression. And that's why this message essentially goes all the way back to the beginning. But I started with speaking about Noah, because before Noah, there was Adam, and there was the transgression that even allowed the spirit of death to come into the world, right? Because when the woman was tricked into biting the fruit, believing that she would receive the knowledge of good and evil, the craftiness and the subtlety of the serpent, of Satan, was that she didn't realize that she already knew good. We didn't even know how to do evil. And if we didn't know how to do evil, there wouldn't be evil, wicked nations, essentially, that will have to be used now to prove Israel, to judge Israel, to test Israel, right? But even in that, the power of Christ will at least allow you to have the ability to be delivered from the spirit of death, because the spirit of death, as well as hell itself, will all be thrown into the lake of fire. And fire, if you read the Bible, represents God's glory. His throne is a throne of fire, right? So, I mean, it just is what it is. So hopefully this message edified you. If it did, please like the video, share it with someone else, subscribe to the channel, turn your post notifications on. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you next time. Freedom and truth.
They calling me a villain cause I'm hurting all they feelings. Get mad at me instead of looking how they living. Evaluate my life and you could really see the difference. Walk it how I talk it, like a military drilling. If you go to church, they may tell you things that feel good. Why it don't work when you apply it to your livelihood? Erase all the wicked things, apply only what is good. Then the poor in spirit feel the presence of the fatherhood.